What is your name? Belinda Stewart. Tell us about you and your hearing loss journey. I'm a mum to two children, currently 11 and 7. My journey with hearing loss started when my daughter was in pre-primary, and we discovered that she only had 30% hearing. This was due to glue ear and recurrent ear infections. My second child as well, my son, probably had even more ear infections and problems with his ears, but we were onto it a little bit earlier. So my children have had lots of ENT operations, lots of grommets, lots of hearing tests. So our journey, I suppose, has been how to overcome that, how to help them on their way with their speech development when they've had some hearing loss. What impact has your hearing loss had on you before seeking help and support? A very big impact, especially with my daughter. We sort of weren't aware, so school was always quite hard for her, especially and speech development. So learning to talk, being able to learn to read and write were always a struggle until we sought help, so that she could hear the sounds, distinguish the sounds, and then be able to continue with that language development. With my son, it was a lot earlier that we discovered his hearing loss issues, so we were able to get right onto that, get those rectified, and yeah, his success with reading and writing came a lot earlier because we got that sorted as soon as possible. So the best thing is getting that help, getting that support, because ultimately that really changes the outcome. What advice do you have for the professionals involved in your journey? I guess my biggest piece of advice is when parents first come, they may be not ready to hear that there's any issues. So it's just really working in a positive way and making sure that parents are aware that there are options, there are things you can do to help, there are things you can do to ensure that this doesn't I suppose impact their learning going forward, and just really helping through that process to take care of the child as a whole. It's not the end of the world, and there's definitely things that can be done, and just to be positive and work with the parent as much as possible, because the parent is living it every day. They might not be a medical expert, but they definitely are living and breathing this, and they can offer a lot of advice to the table. What advice would you have for your younger self around your hearing loss journey? I just wish I probably knew the signs to look out for, so maybe education with young parents when they first have children around this issue would be great. Just didn't realise the things with the speech development to look out for. My daughter is very, very skilled in the art of lip reading. Now I can tell she does it. I probably couldn't back then. Being a first child, didn't really know what to look for. If you could go back in time, what pearl of wisdom would you have for you on your journey? Definitely seek help first. Straight away, don't leave it. Some advice I was given is with glue ear with children and recurrent ear infections, that it will go away, it can sort itself out. Definitely not. Go and see somebody, get it sorted. I wish I had grommets put in for my children, or especially my daughter, long before we had. I think it would have made a better difference early on in the piece. So definitely, if you think something isn't right or there's something in your gut, go with it. Definitely try and get some advice and keep pushing if you're not happy with the answers you get. What impact did that have on your confidence as a mum? That's a really hard one. I think you probably blame yourself and think that you should have noticed things more, I should have pushed more, what if I done this, what if I done that? Yeah, it's really hard on your confidence as mum, because you think that it's been your fault, that you haven't been able to sort it out quicker. So yeah, definitely hard. So what advice would you give parents in a similar situation? I speak to a lot of parents now who have kids that have speech development issues or have hearing loss issues, and I just pass on my advice. And what I found worked worked and providers that I found that really helped me through that process. That can help you. I don't want anyone to feel that they get bounced. I got bounced around a lot in the beginning, so to be able to point someone in the right direction for someone that can actually really help them. How many times did you have to go back and get help, and what made you keep going? We've been back lots of times for help. Unfortunately, my kids' glue ear and ear infection issues didn't clear up straight away, so we had lots of time. Probably the reason that we kept going is when they were getting grommets and things put in, we could see a real difference and we could see the help. So we kept sort of moving forward, and we had some great people along the way to help us. So as soon as we found people in their fields that really worked for us and were wanting to help us get to the bottom of things and move forward, that was a great support, and just to be able to have that support kept momentum up to keep moving forward.
My name is Ray. I was born hearing. I got really sick living up in the Kimberley when I was about 35, and I was sick for about a week, and after that I felt quite like my ears were full of water, and from that I went to a doctor afterwards who sent me to an audiologist and who sent me to an ENT, and progressively over the next 10 years I slowly lost my hearing. And so by the time I was 45, I was profoundly deaf. Yeah. So I went from being hearing to profoundly deaf. So that was my hearing loss journey.
So at the time when I was born hard of hearing, my family didn't notice and didn't realize until when I was 5 years old. So it was a little bit late because at the time I didn't speak at all. So like I didn't know, like I didn't just yell or I didn't scream. So it's just completely silent. And my parents realized, like, how did they realize? Well, at the time there was a doorbell, it was quite loud, and my body just shrunk. So my parents realized that, oh, King can hear that something really loud, maybe she might be deaf. And then my parents decided to take me to the doctor's appointment, and then we just found out that.
So question 7, what do you hope to achieve in discussing your journey here today?
What do I hope? For me, I want to, first of all, like, it's really honorable for us to share about our stories, because it's really helpful for other people to let them know that they are not the only ones. And they are, like, when I was young, I thought I was the only one, but it's not really true. Like, there are people there, it's just we don't know how to reach out to them. So for the video like this one, it's a really good platform because everyone can access it, and it's free and it's really like convenient.
For me, what I hope to achieve in discussing this is that deafness is not a disability. Deafness can happen to pretty much anyone. It can be congenital, you could be born with it, you can get sick and end up becoming deaf, you can have industrial deafness, you can be deaf as a child, you can become deaf as an adult. Deaf is not an age-related, you don't just get it when you grow old. It can happen at any time, but there are supports for everyone. There are lots of things that are out there to help people. There are lots of supports for the families and for the person that is impacted by hearing loss. Just to let you know, so Kinsek is going into her 3rd year of medicine. Without your devices, how much do you hear?
I can't hear literally at all. Yeah.
And I'm the same. I'm a STEM teacher. I teach physics, chem, math, and without my hearing aids, without the devices, I hear nothing at all. What's your experience of the way others have treated you being different? I treated you being deaf. Deafness is invisible, so
Yeah, and it's a broad spectrum. Like some people would sign only, some people would talk. So you can't assume that deaf people would sign only. You know.
people make assumptions about deafness. There is no, that's what you're saying. There is no one size fits all. People are really interesting. I've said to people in the past, you know, I have a hearing loss, or how deaf are you? I'm like, I'm profoundly deaf. And they go, first thing they say is, you speak so well, right? You speak. And then sometimes the same person, 20 minutes later, will go, actually, I can hear you're deaf. You speak funny. And I think, no, I don't. So there, it's not something you know, if you're signing, it's clearly evident that you're deaf. So hearing loss is something that it's not just like, oh hi, my name's Ray, by the way I'm deaf. Because people tend to either decide you might have a disability which might change the way they look at you, or they might decide, well, I won't speak to her because she can't hear me. So it's something that I wouldn't disclose necessarily straight away. Okay, question 9. What advice would you have for your younger self around your hearing loss journey?
To me, to my younger version of myself, there are 3 advices I should came up. So the first, the first advice would be that just do not be ashamed. Yeah, when I was young, I tried not to talk about it. I could like hearing person like, you know, yeah, I can hear you, let's talk, but I could cut it off. Do not be ashamed, just talk about it and seek help. Like, just you can ask your friends or teachers to slow down. Like, sorry, I can't hear. It's okay. Like, sometimes we can't hear, that's fine. But just don't be afraid or just ashamed. So that's the first advice. My second advice is do not try to fit in with hearing people, just because the majority of people is hearing. And my third advice would be that just be proud.
Be what?
Be proud. Yeah, like be proud. Like
Or be proud.
Yeah, be proud. Yeah, be proud of what you have achieved or what you have improved. Just don't feel like don't feel upset that you can't do anything because of your disability.
My advice to my younger self, by that I mean like 10 years younger, not really young, my younger self would be, don't delay, just get on with it. So I shouldn't have waited that 9 months. So with the hearing aids, I should have just made the next step to the cochlear straight away. I would have I wouldn't have lost 2 years. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but that would be my advice. And don't worry what other people think. Don't worry what other people are thinking about you. You can't help what other people think about you. Just get on with your own journey.
My name is Steve Coughlin. I never had a hearing issue when I was younger, but I worked in the mining industry, and in my 20s in Kambalda I was involved in underground mining, working on an air leg, which is a very noisy pneumatic rock drill. And in those days, hearing protection consisted of stuffing cotton wool in your ears, or you could get hearing ear muffs, but they were very uncomfortable during a shift. So I don't think there's any doubt my hearing damage commenced from those early years. It didn't really become an issue until probably my 50s to 60s, where the family and my wife in particular kept saying, you know, stop saying, what did you say, or can you turn the TV down, etc. So ultimately, despite male resistance, I ultimately went and got a hearing test, and it was noted that all my high end was pretty well shot, and the curve didn't look real good. So I got a set of hearing aids which countered that problem, and basically solved the issue from my point of view, particularly not only at home but in business meetings. Certain pictures I had a great difficulty in understanding, and in crowds, etc. I basically really couldn't contribute because of the problem. And since having the hearing aids, that problem has been resolved, which is very, very important for me. What does my wife tell me often? She says, go and get your hearing checked. Stop asking me to repeat what I'm saying. So that was kind of encouragement of a negative form, I guess, to go and get assistance. Certainly my mates or sons and daughter are a lot happier that for the same reasons I now have hearing aids, you can hear your grandchildren properly and all the rest of it. It wasn't hard for me to accept that I had hearing loss. I understood the logic behind it in terms of the industry I'm in. Similarly, your eyesight fails, but not due to industrial issues, that's just old age, whereas I think in my case, my hearing loss would be nowhere near what it is had I had appropriate PPE that's available now when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, etc. It wasn't hard at all for me to take the first step in getting tested. I'm not too sensitive, although I do prefer that they be not too obvious, which I guess is not a necessary thing, but I'm happy with the in-ear ones. My advice for anyone younger, had I had my time over again, was to take your work environment, in my case, very seriously, because they're very, very noisy machines do damage your hearing. And had I not been so macho when I was younger, I would maybe not have the problem I now have had I taken better protection of my ears. I could have worn earmuffs. Obviously industrial hearing protection is far better these days, and I still work in the mining industry. We have some 5,000 employees involved in the mining industry. So we certainly insist that they wear their PPE, which includes proper hearing protection.
My name is Alexander John Clark. I'm married to Sandra Clark, and I have 3 children, Wayne, Craig and a late daughter. I lost my daughter to cancer 4 years ago. Janine, she was a teacher, and I've got 5 grandchildren. How progressive was your hearing loss and what caused it? I had my tonsils and adenoids out at the Royal Perth Hospital when I was about 14 or 15. But that wasn't the problem. It was a progress of a nerve that stopped stopped my ear functioning. And the word is that I can't pronounce the word, but it's osteoarthritis. It's a long word, about that long. And that caused it. Do you get told off for doing all the talking? Absolutely. I get told off all the time. I get kicked under the table. I get nudges, and I don't apologise for it because I'm a very interesting and intelligent person. How long did your wife nag you to get your hearing tested, and what was the key barrier to asking for help? Because she's always encouraged me to go to Australian Hearing, get your ear tested every year, make sure you get a good hearing aid. And so he's never been backward to come forward to make his hearing loss better. What do you hope to achieve in discussing your journey? What I would like to achieve is I've overcome the stigma, depression of being profoundly deaf. And now when I look around, I want to help as many young children, adults to explain that hearing loss is not the end of your journey, and that the more you talk about it, the more you get together, find a Talent Speech Hearing or WA Deaf Foundation or Access, the journey's going to be a lot better. What advice would you have for your younger self around your hearing loss? Wow. That's, let's say, this is the best I have felt for the last 20 years, and I don't classify me as a deaf person. I put the hearing on every morning. I function right through the day, and the only time that I do really get uncomfortable scares when I take the hearing aid out and I can't hear what's going around.
What is your name? Justin Miller. Tell us about you and your hearing loss journey. Well, that's an interesting one because I've got two dimensions to my hearing loss journey. One is my personal journey. I do suffer from otosclerosis and have had an operation. So I'm one of the fortunate few that can actually, and has actually, there is an operation to overcome my form of deafness. So that's been an interesting part of my journey. And the other is through innovation and providing accessible and affordable hearing solutions to the many millions of people that today go without. What impact has your hearing loss had on you before seeking help and support? I think the impact was probably on other people rather than myself, and I think that's probably evident with most people that have hearing loss. It's not something that goes like that. It's something that slowly evolves and you slowly adjust to it. So it's those people that are around you that, more importantly, are telling you that you have a hearing loss and they need to do something about it. So it was actually through the occupation that my hearing loss was picked up, through a health and safety assessment that I have had, and ultimately that was where it went on, and I was diagnosed with otosclerosis. So happily, well, you're never fully cured, but I'm happily semi-cured from that condition through having a prosthetic inserted in my ear, the little piston. How long did you take before you addressed your hearing loss? Quite a long time, in the sense that, that was at least a 3-year journey, I think, by having been diagnosed from otosclerosis and having the operation. So pleased that I did, and I'm very thankful for it, but so is my family. What advice do you have for the professionals involved in your journey? That's an interesting question. I think today very, very few people actually get access to hearing healthcare for a number of reasons. Personally, people will point to the inconvenience, the stigma, the process. Others will point to the cost. So there's a number of reasons why people don't take the hearing healthcare journey today. And my advice to the professionals is we need to start treating people at a much younger age. Average age of a hearing aid wearer is 72. We start losing our hearing just through age, on average at about 35. So there's many decades where people don't treat, and I think that has consequences when they get to an older age, and they're now showing the consequences of that go deeper than listening and managing relationships. It actually goes into dementia and losing and cognitive decline through not being able to interact, and in some cases actually withdrawing through inability to go and socialise. So professionals in the journey, they've got to embrace getting more people into hearing healthcare at a much earlier age, and to do that we must provide devices that they want to wear, and at a price where they're willing to actually commit to that. So So my advice to professionals involved in the journey is to embrace a much younger user. And I'm proud to say from our perspective as well, I mean, the average age of our customers are 52. So we're already having some impact there in relation to getting people to use these devices earlier. What advice would you have for your younger self around your hearing loss journey? I think get treated at a much earlier age. I think you've got to, if people around you are telling you you've got a problem with hearing and you've got to, pardon the pun, you've got to listen to it and you've got to take action on it. It has consequences, not only for the immediacy in terms of the life that you're living and the people around you, but also, as I suggested, the longer you leave it, the more inclined we are to run into other issues from a healthcare perspective. So for my younger self, I should have done something about it a lot earlier, and I think that would be consistent with a lot of people with hearing loss. Why is it important for these devices to be available? For our devices, I think the World Health Organization recently released a report, the hearing report, at the back end of last year, and the significance of that was that 75% of people with all hearing loss have a mild hearing loss, but there's negligible penetration for treatment in that part of hearing loss. The other 25% sits between moderate and severe. But even with that moderate severe, which is, and hearing aids, you know, are targeting moderate to severe levels of hearing loss, even within those boundaries, and that's pretty significant levels of hearing loss, out of all the people that could have a device in that category, in the higher levels of hearing loss, only 17% of all people have a device. And if you think about that, 75% aren't getting anything, and the other 25% that have higher levels of hearing loss, is only 17% are actually treating it. So from that perspective, it's very important that we provide devices at that are more accessible, more affordable, more convenient. There are simply not enough audiologists on the planet to fit all the people that need hearing loss or hearing loss treatment. I think by calculation, the audiologist would have to fit one every 10 seconds for the next 20 years to treat everyone that actually would require it. So there's simply not enough. Why are they different to hearing aids? Well, I mean, our earbuds are more conforming to, I guess, what's socially acceptable to have things in your ear. I think Apple have done an amazing job in terms of having by providing normalisation of having things in your ear. So that their AirPods have been significant, and now they're prolific. So wireless earbuds are quite prolific. So I think the hearing industry itself has spent decades trying to invent ways to hide hearing devices behind the ear, in the ear. We've now reached a point where it's actually acceptable to have things on your ear, and with that, it's much easier to embed hearing aid functionality into something that sits on the ear, and have people accept that they can be treated and still look like everyone else.
So the first question is just, what is your name?
Robert Coventry, but known as Bob.
Tell us about you and your hearing loss journey.
Well, I guess it was most noticeable. I'm ex-military. I did 40 years in the army, and we had to have annual health assessments, including hearing checks. And the last few years, I noticed it started to decline. And like a lot of military personnel, or right-handed personnel anyway, your left ear is exposed more when you're firing a rifle. So therefore, my left ear is more noticeably down than my right ear.
And what advice would you have for your younger self around your hearing loss journey?
What advice? Oh, well, yeah, where appropriate, hearing protection. Again, a lot of the older members in my men's shed have got the attitude that the hearing's buggered and it won't get any better, so it doesn't matter taking any protection. That's always important, and I'm always asking them to put the hearing protection in when they're working around the machinery.
And do you have any advice for the professionals involved in your journey?
The professionals, as in the people in the testing clinics, not really. Although I've noticed that over the years the test regime seems to be the same, and it doesn't matter whether you're 20 or 70, they'll still give you the same set of tests. So I would have thought that there would have been a testing parameter which is more aimed at the particular hearing loss, which is attributable to aging. So the higher frequencies and the higher pitch drop off. So therefore a test could be involved to better test the hearing ability at the lower frequencies.
How long did your wife nag you to get your hearing tested, and what was the key barriers to asking for help?
There you go. You see, she never had to nag me, so that's a really good thing. She's a good wife. Because the military requirement is every 12 months, and in the military you do what you have to do. So, no, she's never had to nag me. She has recently indicated that it probably doesn't. I probably do need another test, and I probably do. So, yeah, I guess nag may not be a good word, but she has pointedly suggested that I need to go and get it checked.
Did your hearing loss have any impact on you in the military?
Yeah, a little bit, I guess. My trade in the military was in electronics, in telecommunications, equipment, repair, maintenance, installation, etc. And so some of our fine tuning of instruments of a particular frequency, that would have been difficult for me to maintain had I still been maintaining it now. Yeah, we've got a couple of fellas who are acute. I'm not an expert, but it's obvious that they've got acute hearing loss and do not wear any hearing devices. And similarly with my mother-in-law, who's in her mid-90s, who does have hearing aids, but they're not effective. And having conversations with them is very difficult, and it's obvious that they are not participating in group discussions because they don't interact. They sit with blank expressions, don't get involved, and can't follow the conversation, let alone join the conversation. So it's a real problem that they are being excluded through something that probably is preventable or part preventable, some sort of an aid that would assist them maintain that contact a little bit longer. So I'd like to see people acknowledge their loss and do something about it. But I guess it comes down to the individual.
So the best thing is getting that help, getting that support, because ultimately that really changes the outcome. I got bounced around a lot in the beginning, so to be able to point someone in the right direction for someone that can actually really, really help them.
Don't delay, just get on with it. Don't worry what other people are thinking about you. You can't help what other people think about you. Just get on with your own journey.
And now, if hearing aids, you can hear your grandchildren properly and all the rest of it. Take your work environment, in my case, very seriously, because they're very, very noisy machines do damage your hearing. And had I not been so macho when I was younger, I would maybe not have the problem I now have.
I want to help as many young children, adults, to explain that hearing loss is not the end of your journey.
I'm very thankful for it, but so is my family. Get treated at a much earlier age.
I'd like to see people acknowledge their loss and do something about it. But, you know, I guess it comes down to the individual.